Hey y'all, it's Arya here. Getting ready for Grand Prix Columbus. Gonna be out there with Team Snapkeep Games. Shout out, they're the best. All those things. Um, my friend Jesse Heffer, God bless his soul, played Burn in the Legacy Classic at the SCG Atlanta. Him and I talked about it for a bit, and he was a huge fan of the deck. I mean, he was saying he might even run it back for Columbus. I think he X2'd, barely missing top 16 with tiebreakers. Um, this is a majority of what he played. We conversed a little bit about some of the card choice. Some of the cards you'll notice that are missing are things like Monastery Swiftspear. Um, just don't want to turn our opponent's removal on. It's usually only attacking for one. A lot of our deck is kind of instant speed. A lot of the usual suspects are here, though. You'll notice the Chain Lightnings, the Goblin Guides. Goblin Guides are just too good not to play. Especially since we're doing a lot of things at instant speed. Like this, just stock having 2 power is insane. Grim Lavamancer is a 2 of. It's just good card advantage. It's a good card advantage. It's a good way to be ahead. Like you spend your spells and you get more damage out of it after the fact. Your Lava Spikes and Lightning Bolts, no one's surprised by those. 4 Price of Progress, it's almost the reason to play the deck. Eidolon of the Great Revels, ever since this card got printed, Burn moved up a whole tier. It could be, combo decks now, so just insane card. Searing Blaze, I'm not very high on this card. I think this card is slightly too reactive. It wants your opponent to do something for you to do something, for it to do something. But, that being said, most of the best Magic cards, Swords to Plowshares or Force of Will or, I don't know, Lightning Bolt. Most of the times, the best cards require your opponent to be doing something for them to do something. They're mostly reactive. That's where they get their power from. And Searing Blaze is a great way to develop card advantage in your deck. It's, you kill a guy and you deal him 3 points of damage so you don't take the time off for tempo. So I think the objective power of Searing Blaze is enough to keep it included. However, I am not in love with the card. 4 Rift Bolt, just more 1-mana burn spells. 2 Sulfuric Vortex is a product of a lot of control decks. They don't really have a lot of answers to this. It sneaks past Miracles a lot because their 3s are pretty much limited to, as far as main deck, it's pretty much only Mentor if they're playing it, or V-Click if they're playing it. And the one of Council's Judgment, they're probably playing. In the sideboard, they do have Wear and Tear to hit it, and whatever other cute spells they want to play. But you generally sneak this past most counterbalances. And 4 Fire Blast, probably one of the best red cards ever printed. Card's insane. Going to the sideboard, 4 Exquisite Firecrafts for them blue people. No one's surprised that just the format of Brainstorm. 90% of everything is a blue deck, so you need this to fight them. And I've played a few matches with this deck on Moto before this video, and just in general, I've played a few matches with Burn on Moto. A lot of people just counter this Firecraft, and I don't know if they don't read it or they haven't heard, or they're hoping Moto will miss it. I don't know what they're hoping for, but I've seen people just try to force a will of Firecraft that in bright blue says can't be countered. I don't know what's wrong with them, but some people just want to try. Searing Blood, I think this card is a lot better in Legacy than it is in Modern. The Squire body, the 1/2, the 2 toughness is just huge, and it kills things like Deathrite Shaman and Stoneforge Mystic, and Delver, both halves of it, and excuse me. I'm very hard pressed to find a target that is important in the games that doesn't die to Searing Blaze or Searing Blood. Charless Agents or Baleful Strixes. Tarmogoyf is really the only card I ever want to kill that I can't with Searing Blood. Then of course there's things like Gristlebrand and Emrakul that you can't kill with it, but that's not what they're for. Searing Blood's just great in all those. Anyone who's trying to win through attacking or even Fair Magic, it's great against the Fair Magic decks. Smash the Smithereens, it might as well have Chalice of the Void written on it. The other option here is Shatter Spree. Shatter Spree, so the interaction with Shatter Spree and Replicate, when you replicate Shatter Spree targeting a Chalice for one, and you pay, let's say, an extra red to replicate, the Chalice will not counter the copied spell because it isn't cast, it's just copied. I know I'm not wording it as correctly as any judge would, so please ask your judge friends, or like someone who you know knows the rules very well. I have had this okayed by more than one judge, and I actually was introduced to the interaction by my good friend Michael Aerosmith. He was telling me about it, and I'm like, there's no way that works that way. But I mean, he's been an L2 judge ever since I've been playing Magic, so I believe him. And I ran it by a few other judges, and they were like, yeah, it does work that way. So the Shatter Spree is the only other card that I would recommend over this Smash Smithereens. Pithing Needle, it's good against. I mean, I've named Sensei's Divining Top with it. You named Gristlebrand with it. Sneak Attack. There's so many cards as card names. I do understand that this is a very reactive card, and it's not really where Burn wants to be. Burn's a very proactive deck, but there's some things that your opponent can have that you just simply can't beat. If your opponent has a Sneak Attack in play, you need to draw like 5 Lightning Bolts the next turn to win, or there's a lot of things that you just need to answer in Legacy especially. There's just certain things that you have to Pithing Needle in order to win the game. If they have a Stoneforge Mystic for say, or Deathrite Shaman, there's just a lot of cards that matter. Grim Lavamancer is just more to bring in against people who are trying to attack you. Pyrostatic Pillar, oddly enough, for Magus of the Pillars isn't enough against some combo decks, and I want 6 of this effect, so I board in 2 more, and this card is great. It is literally the exact card out of one of the Great Rebels, but it is not a 2/2 as well. A little bit easier on the mana, I guess. But yeah, this is for the combo decks. Fairy Macabre, I believe there's a lot of graveyard decks. It's real good against Reanimator, Storm. Sometimes Storm can get through Fairy Macabre, but I've definitely been on the wrong end where I've cast a Fairy Macabre against an Exhume, and it brings your Fairy Macabre back into play because you're discarding it and it goes to your graveyard, and then you have a 2/2 flyer, which is pretty great. But other than that, it also can't be countered, which is huge because decks like Tin Fins and even some Storm decks, they'll play things like Duress and Storm definitely plays Duress, but things like Tin Fins will play Force of Will, and some of them play Thoughtseize. Usually don't. You can Cabal Therapy this out of our hand, sure, but it's mostly a non-counterable way to get things out of their graveyard. Mana base, I guess I'll talk about that real quick. Jesse played 12 fetches, 8 mountains. I'm playing 7 mountains and 13 fetches because I know Burn can flood a lot, and I've been on the flooding end of Burn, and it's just so frustrating. You're just there's 10 lands left in my deck and 40 Burn spells, and my opponent's at 3, and then you just draw 3 of your 10 lands in a row, and you just want to throw up. So we're going to add 1 more fetch and 1 less basic, and hopefully that fixes the problem, because I do still want to have 1 to 2, maybe even 3 lands in some games. So I don't exactly want to cut a land for a spell just yet, although it may develop into that as time progresses. Sideboard cards we're not playing that we could play. Let's see. Oh man, I just had this whole list and I'd forgotten about it. Drawing a blank. I'll definitely bring it up over the course of the videos. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't come to me right now. I think it's just ubiquitous hate cards that we could probably play. We could play like Cage and things like that. We could play certain hate cards. We could play Red Elemental Blast against all the blue decks that are floating around. We could, Sabo's. We probably wouldn't play Sabo's Web, but Red Elemental Blast I think is primarily one of the cards that we could play that we're just not going to. Flames of the Bloodhand for the life gain decks. I think I'm going to try playing another iteration of this deck soon where I'm cutting these Searing Blazes for Swift Spears. But it kind of stinks because then they'd be good together. You play a 1-drop and then you blaze their 2-drop or their 1-drop and then you get in for more damage. It may turn into a 2 Searing Blaze for these 2 Sulfuric Vortex and 4 Swift Spears in here. But then we would have to move the Vortex to the sideboard because these Vortexes are pretty nice. I don't know. Deck seems great. If I wasn't so hard strung on playing a green-black deck because I just want to beat the card Counterbalance, if I wasn't so hard on that, I would probably even play this myself for Columbus. Who knows if I'm just testing this over the Legacy, what are they called? If I'm testing this over the Legacy Leagues and I'm just, mowing everybody over, I might still play it, but, we'll err on the side of caution and say this is just one of the decks that I'm considering. However, I do have a few friends who are planning on going to the tournament and they want to play Burn, and we're going to test out some tech for them. So, like, comment, subscribe, go to snapkeepgames.com. I'll be back soon for the matches. We're going to run this through a friendly Legacy League because they don't have competitive Legacy Leagues yet, unfortunately. So, we'll see you guys soon, and let me know if you got any questions. Thanks. Bye.